Okay, everybody, listen to Ronnie.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. This is RCEA staff member Ronnie Chasse speaking. Before Chair Sherry Wu calls this in-person and online hybrid meeting to order, here are some housekeeping announcements. For those of you here in the Warfinger building, the microphones will be on throughout the meeting. Please identify yourself when speaking and one speaker at a time. Please, so online and phone participants can follow what's being said. We do not have any online board members. For community members participating in the public comment periods, please come to the podium if you're able so the microphone picks up your voice. Online participants, click the raise hand button in the webinar controls. Phone participants, press *9 to raise your hand. Public comment may be limited to 3 minutes at the chair's discretion. Please raise your hand early so we don't miss you. Email public comments are accepted before and during the meeting at publiccomment@redwoodenergy.org. Remote participants, if you experience phone or internet disruptions during this meeting, please notify us if possible by calling or texting 707-382-7336 or by emailing publiccomment@redwoodenergy.org. And that's all for announcements. Sure will.
All right, thank you, Ronnie. So this is the meeting of RCEA at Redwood Coast Energy Authority, January 25, 2024. And can I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Director Natalie Arroyo. Here. Director Scott Bauer. He will be arriving 15 minutes late, so not here now. Director Skip Jorgensen.
Here.
Director Chris Mobley.
Here.
Director Sherry Provolt.
Here.
Director Jason Ramos.
Here.
Director Elise Scafani.
Here.
Vice Chair Sarah Schaefer.
Here.
Director Jack Tuttle.
Here.
Director Frank Wilson.
Here.
And Chair Sherry Wu.
I'm here.
Wonderful.
Okay, so thank you, Ronnie. Let's see here. We did that part. So now we're up to, there's no remote directors participating, right?
No remote.
Okay, so item 2 is board appointments. And the first one is 2.1, election of officers and community advisory committee liaisons. And do we have a staff report?
So every year we select a chair and vice chair to serve through the January 20 through the year, and the next it'll be serving through January 2025. The chair and vice chair will also be authorized to sign on RCA bank accounts when needed. And then we also select a board liaison to the Community Advisory Committee to serve through January 2025. Director Mobley has served, and we thank her very much for the past year. And so we will turn it over to you as a group to nominate and vote for chair, vice chair, and CAC liaison.
All right, thank you, Eileen. I'm gonna go, I usually let everybody else go and then I go last, but I'm gonna upend this one. I would like to, well, my selection for chair is Sarah Schaefer as vice chair. She's been doing that for the last year, and I'd like to put that out. Anybody else have, let's start out with board chair first.
So you're nominating Sarah Schaefer
I am.
for chair.
Yep. Thanks. Is there anybody else?
Oh,
that-
you want me to sit down? Yeah, sure.
Early second.
If somebody else wants me to do it, there's no point. Was that a motion? I'll second.
I can't make
Yeah, I am willing to do that if people want that.
Okay, so is that a motion for a chair? And a second?
Yes.
Okay, we got that.
Wait, who made the motion?
Sarah made the motion.
Oh,
Because I can't.
myself, okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Sure, do that. I can't do it, but you can. And then Natalie made the second. Okay, let's see, can we?
You can do a show of hands.
Okay, all in favor, show of hands?
Okay, unanimous, motion passed.
Lovely. I think it's.
I would want
yeah,
to nominate
now.
Scott to be vice chair, but he's not here, so I don't know how he feels about that.
Good
but-
job.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Scott. Sorry, Scott. Yeah, I'll make a motion to nominate Scott for Scott Bauer as vice chair.
I'll second.
I think he knows it's coming. Okay, oh, I'm calling the vote now. Okay, cool. So we'll do a show of hands vote, all in favor of the motion. All right, carries unanimously. Okay, and then we will look at our board liaison and an alternate liaison to the community advisory committee. I would recommend too, if you are new to this board, it is a really great opportunity to learn a lot about what's going on and our community members that are super involved. I did it a couple of years ago, and I'm sure you might speak to that too, Chris, but it's probably a good learning experience.
Very good learning experience. They're a great group to work with. And I don't mind doing it for another term if nobody else wants to do it. But it is only every other.
Yeah, I will point out, it is every other month, the second Tuesday of the month at 6 o'clock at the Jefferson Center.
And they are very good at trying to keep it to just an hour and a half. So you're in there, they get through everything, and you're out.
Question, amongst us, who doesn't have a meeting on a Tuesday? Already for their board, I mean, our board meetings. Don't often go till 6, but they do at times, so I feel a little unsure of my ability to commit, and I wonder who else doesn't have a meeting on a Tuesday.
I don't. But Chris has already said that she's happy to do it for now.
I
Thank you,
don't
Chris.
get
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, so we had a nomination from Director Arroyo and a second from Director Jorgensen, and we'll do show of hands vote, all in favor. Okay, and Chris will continue, and who's our current alternate for that as well?
I didn't look that up. We've never had to use the alternate. I'm not sure if we voted for one last year. We might
I
not
don't
have.
think so. There was only one meeting that I couldn't attend,
Yeah.
and I sent in notes to be read
Mhm.
during.
If anybody else wants to be the alternate or is interested in that position? Sounds like Chris is pretty committed, so you probably wouldn't have to go much.
I volunteer myself as the alternate.
We have a volunteer
Second.
and we have a second of that volunteer. And again, show of hands vote on that. Okay, and Natalie will be our alternate. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, and so the next item that we're gonna look at too is our board subcommittee member assignment. And so we are going to determine whether the finance subcommittee should continue this work. And we can appoint up to 5 directors to that committee. Eileen, do you have a staff report on that or?
Yeah, so, we typically meet with the finance subcommittee when we're drafting the annual budget. It's not a big commitment. We were gonna meet with mid-year budget review, but that was canceled this week. Not that long ago, we I guess it was a year ago. It feels like yesterday. So current members are Sarah Schaefer, Director Scott Bauer, Director Jorgensen, and Director Wilson. And so we do find value in being able to do a little deeper dive into the budget review process with the subcommittee. Seeing as we only meet once a month and we don't have a lot of time when we're going over the draft budget review, staff finds value in having this standing committee available to us.
How often do you meet? You do this every month?
No, just as needed, and so
Just as needed.
we've really only been meeting once or twice a year.
That's what I follow. I just understand.
Well, I'm happy to stay on that committee.
And I am too.
I am.
Well, I will make a motion then to keep the same committee members.
And we could take up to 1 more if anybody else is interested in.
You guys
Getting
did a
some
great
deep
job
dive.
with the 4 of you.
Okay, all right, so Chris made the motion to keep the committee as is with its current makeup. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Jack. Sorry, Director Tuttle. I get to first. All right.
Unanimous, motion passed.
All right, great. And so that will take us into our next section, which is going to be reports from member entities. So do we have anybody on the board that would like to report on anything happening in the community? Anything going on?
Okay, not seeing anything. We will move into oral and written communication. So again, this time is provided for people to address the board or submit written communication on matters not on the agenda. And at the conclusion of oral communications, we may respond to statements. Any requests that need to go onto an agenda will be referred to staff. So we will set the timer for 3 minutes for speakers. And so if you are here to make public comment, please make your way to the podium. We'll take in-person comment first, and then we'll move to folks that are on Zoom waiting to make comment. So if you are here, please make your way.
Hi, my name is Joanna Welch and I live here in Eureka. And I'm really upset that you call the biomass plant sustainable energy. Biomass is worse than coal and natural gas. And that plant has over 370 violations. And so for the people living down there, this is awful. They're really having, for their health and everything, it's terrible what's happening. We need to close that plant and not have RCEA have that plant part of their, sustainable energy.
Thank you. We'll take the next speaker, please.
Hey, my name is Wendy Ring. Thank you all for the service that you do. I would never, ever want to be an elected official. And I understand, you're caught between different conflicting priorities. I'm commenting today, not just by myself, but on behalf of the Humboldt Coalition for Clean Energy, which is a group of 16 local organizations spanning the environmental, health, faith, political, and community organizations, and 2 statewide groups of doctors and nurses. And we're calling on RCEA to drop biomass from your renewable portfolio. You have received reports over the last 2 years about air and water violations at the biomass plant. And today we have even more disturbing news. We initially thought that this was going on for maybe 2 years, maybe it's for less, but it's still illegal and it's unacceptable. The plant is operating without a Title V permit, which is a requirement for all major source polluters. So it's a little hard to follow the permit timeline to get answers to questions. You have to submit public record requests, and then you have to rely on what you receive. But I think you have it in your packet. When I asked for the most recent permit, I got one dated 2017, and they only last for 5 years. So and there is something called an application shield where a plant can keep on operating, even if their permit has expired, if they have submitted their renewal request in a timely and complete manner. So what's your definition of timely? If you had to submit an application for something and it had a deadline, and you submitted it after the deadline, would you consider that timely? I would not. So they don't qualify to have a shield and to keep operating while the air district reviews their application. Right now they're breaking the law. So there is a clause in the power purchase agreement that you have with Humboldt Sawmill, which you celebrate on your website and put in all the reports that go to CPUC as an example of RCEA's sensitivity to environmental justice and community concerns. It allows RCEA to terminate a contract early in the event of serious environmental violations. Right now, there are over 100 high priority violations that have been reported to the EPA by the Air District, and now we've got this operating without a license. So this is not okay. Every time this topic comes up, we have RCEA staff say, well, yeah, but look at the price. This is such a good deal. The full cost is not reflected on your balance sheets because most of it is externalized to the public, where it falls disproportionately on the most vulnerable members of our society, unborn babies, the elderly, people who don't have the resources to get away from pollution, or install air filters in their houses.
Thank you, Dr. Ring.
Okay.
The next speaker, please. Are there more speakers here in person? Make public comment. All right, last call. We're gonna go online then. Is there anybody on Zoom waiting to comment?
We have online comment from G.
Hi, my name is Jane Hartford. I live in Scotia, the town where you are, that Wendy Ring was just discussing. And I am totally against this power plant running unpermitted. It's unpermitted, I believe, because it can't be permitted. I understand that there's a shortage of electricity sources for Humboldt County, but this is really polluting our air. And I would like this to be remedied. I'm sorry if people lose their jobs, but this has to be remedied or shut down. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Do we have any other online comments or use? No other online comments. All right.
And I'd like to just inform the board that we did receive online comments. They can be found on our website and on the packets at the table. And then we had a last minute addition from the North Coast Unified Air Quality Management District that was handed out and will be included in the packet once we finish this meeting.
Great, thank you, Eileen. All right, well then we will close oral communications and we'll move into the next part of our agenda, which is the consent calendar. So all matters on the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the board and are enacted on one motion. And if there's no separate discussion of these items, and so if discussion is required, members of the board may pull an item from the consent calendar and consider it separately. So the first item is 5.1, approve the minutes of December 21st, 2023 board meeting. Item 5.2, approve disbursements report. Item 5.3, accept financial reports. And item 5.4, which is to approve the 2024 RCEA Board of Directors meeting calendar. Do we have any members of the board that would like to pull an item from consent? Right. And do we have any members of the public or comments on consent calendar? Not seeing any. Take a motion.
I'll move approval of the consent calendar.
We have a motion by Director Arroyo and a second by Director Mobley. All in favor, we'll do a show of hands vote. Motion passes. And so we're moving into CCE. I believe we have a CCE forum. Yes, okay. And that will take us, there's no old business, so we'll go directly into new CCE business. Just item 8.1, Calpine Energy Solutions Data Manager presentation. And so we have Account Services Manager Sally Wrigley here and Calpine representative to report.
So I can introduce Michaela. Michaela actually used to work for Redwood Coast Energy Authority before going to work with Calpine. We work closely with Calpine and Michaela, which is nice as an extension to still get to work with her. And they're here just to give an update. It's been a while since we've heard from them regarding our data management and the services they provide us.
Great. Thank you, Eileen. All right, let's see. Okay, excellent. Well, I just want to start off once again by saying thank you for this time. I know time is short. There's lots of things on the agenda here. But so often something like data management, you don't really hear about it until something goes wrong. And I'm happy to say that things really haven't gone that wrong very often, so you don't get to hear from us all that often. But we really appreciate the opportunity to come and talk about the work that we do for you folks kind of behind the scenes. So we are the #1 data manager for CCAs in California. We also do contact center services for many of our CCAs and kind of do the backup contact center service for you folks. We've been very happy to do that. We've been around in CCA since the beginning. So we were there helping MCE launch, and we've been working with many of the other CCAs in California and also the East Coast since then. So we do everything from electronic data interchange with the investor-owned utilities to settling your load with CAISO. And we make sure that you have the data from all of those different sources so that you can perform the programs that you need to for your customers. So just as some statistics to give you folks kind of a sense of the scope that we're operating at. We service around 5 million meters in California. And just to give you a bit of a sense there, that's almost exactly the same amount as PG&E. So really much of the state we're taking care of. So we have over 100 CCA dedicated employees in our San Diego office, which is where me and Matt are from. We can translate into over 200 languages for our contact center. We receive over 200,000 daily usage files. On a daily basis, we manage over 6,500 individual rate components. We've done over 160 statutory enrollments for our 21 CCAs in California. And finally, we manage 10 million plus monthly electronic data interchange transactions. So we're doing a lot of things on behalf of the CCA community. So just a little overview there. And ultimately, the number that I really want to focus on today is billing accuracy and then timeliness. So the core of our services to you folks is making sure that we're receiving the right data from PG&E and then helping you to translate that into charges to your customers. So we've been very proud over the last year to have a billing accuracy rate of 100% and then a timeliness rate of 99.995%. So that's the EDI, electronic data interchange component of it. We also provide qualified reporting entity services for you folks for the renewable energy projects that you have. Also customer information systems so that your staff can access the data specifically for individual customers and on a larger scale as well. And then we do the settlement process with CAISO on behalf of you all. And one thing that I want to mention is that we're able to provide such a stellar accuracy and timeliness rate because we have very stringent controls for not just our billing, but also for our IT. And we have a voluntary SOC audit, so a systems and operations control audit that we do to ensure that these processes are designed correctly and then operated correctly as well. So I want to talk a little bit more about that accuracy number. And, when we look at the larger scale, so Calpine sends out around 60 million invoices a year. So not just for RCEA, but all of our California CCA customers, our clients. So if we look at the accuracy percentage on that scale, we see that the industry standard for the investor-owned utilities is around 98 to 99%. And that doesn't sound too bad, but when we're looking at that scale, that's still 600,000 errors. And our competition is somewhere around that 99% as well. But even when you start looking into, even smaller error percentages, 99.99% is still 6,000 errors. And of course, every single error is damage to the relationship with your customers and more work that staff has to do. So we're very excited that we've been able to provide that 100% accuracy rate to you folks. So first of all, I just need to apologize for this slide. I know it's a lot, but kind of the point of it is to give a top-down view of what that accuracy rate really means to RCEA and the way that we are able to provide service to you. So I'm going to break it down. Let's look at this together. So starting on the left side, we receive data from PG&E and many different streams for you all. So we talked about that electronic data interchange for billing. We also get customer lists in Excel format. We also receive data streams and other formats for you all. So we start by ingesting that data and then validating it. And so through that process, we end up finding exceptions. So, it's all kinds of things. Let's see, an example would be Sally's a residential customer, but all of a sudden this month we get usage for 50,000 kilowatt hours for her. And we're like, let's look at that. Well, that doesn't make sense. Or Jocelyn Her account closed last month, but then all of a sudden we're getting usage for her account. So these are the things that we have to investigate. So we look at all of these issues that come through and we bring it back to PG&E and we work through each exception. Now, what we've found is that about 10% of the data that we have coming in from PG&E has some kind of an error. So that's really a lot to be worked through. And we have a 10-day billing window once the data has come into us that we have to turn it back around to PG&E so that it makes it on the bill. Most of the time, we turn that around within 1 day. So we have, the timeliness rate is also quite good. But there, sometimes there's these issues that come up that you really have to investigate very deeply. The vast majority of the time, we're able to turn it around in that time period. But that's the kind of the structure of how that back and forth works. So once we've validated that data, we have this usage stream that we're able to send over to you folks that goes into these extremely crucial parts of the CCA business. So the validated usage goes into your CAISO settlements. And this is essentially your cost of your energy there. So you're telling the independent system operator how much energy your customers have used and essentially what to charge you for it. So getting that right is crucial. That's ultimately, one of your biggest bills there. And then when we look at kind of the next step, taking that data and bringing it into your forecasting and procurement process, once again, some of the biggest bills that CCAs have, you need that data to be fully vetted out so that you can make those plans in your integrated resource planning and PPA procurement and things like that. And then the next one here is probably the most, kind of straightforward. The data then goes into customer invoices. So of course we need that to be right every single time. Every customer is looking at their bill. They have confidence in the charges that they're getting from RCEA. And so then they're gonna turn around and pay those bills. So we have, all of the cash that you're sending out needs that validated usage data, relies on it. And then of course, all the cash coming in relies on the validated customer usage. And then of course it turns around. We do, a lot of the accounting for that cash that comes in. So you're using the data yet again for collections and things like that. So we wanted to give kind of a top-down gestalt view of the importance of that accuracy that we provide to you folks in order for you to run that efficient and effective organization that we all know RCEA to be. So then moving on a little bit from the really core services that we provide, the billing component, to some of the tools that we provide to you folks and to staff in particular. So this is an example on the screen here of Insights. So that's a data visualization tool that allows staff to kind of take in these really massive data sets and kind of slice and dice and get a sense of load shape and things like that for particular customer groups. We also support the forums on the websites that allow customers to come in and make decisions around what programs they want to be on. The interactive voice response system. So if you call and want to make a selection with your program, that's that as well. The CRM, customer relationship management tool, in order for staff to look at things like particular customer invoices or usage for customers in particular. And we also have a data warehouse that's available to staff so that they can go in and take out large chunks of data at a time to perform whatever analysis they need to. In addition to that, we have an API, application programming interface, so that staff, when ready, can go in and kind of like tunnel into the data warehouse and continually take out whatever data is needed to update internal warehouses. So besides those core services, we also are always trying to find new ways to be supportive of our CCA partners. And we've entered into a couple of partnerships in order to do that. And so one of them is our behavioral science team. We've partnered with the Sea Change Institute and asked them to do CCA industry specific research. And they've put together a number of white papers, and we had a series presenting those white papers to our CCAs this last fall, and I was very happy to see lots of RCEA staff coming and enjoying and asking interesting questions. And also, we are very interested in doing customized behavioral science campaigns. So we've been able to work with some CCAs already in order to kind of look at particular questions they wanted to ask around maybe, things like customer behavior and whatnot. So if there's anything that folks want to think through, we're always happy to brainstorm on that. And then lastly, another service that we provide through a partnership is with Recurve Analytics. We're really excited about this partnership. We've been working with them for a few years now. One of the things that we work with them on is a platform that we provided to staff that does some more slicing and dicing of customer populations. But this one is particularly for targeting customer populations for programs. So we can look at the total RCEA population of customers and say, what's the group that would benefit from heat pumps the most? What's the group that would, have their bills would go up the most with heat pumps? And so you folks can really target who would benefit from the programs that you're putting your energy into. No pun intended. And then alongside that, we also, through this partnership, give you folks access to a market-based demand flexibility platform. So this is something where essentially RCEA could put up a signal saying, we're willing to pay this much per kilowatt hour for energy that's being reduced. So demand flexibility or energy efficiency, that type of thing. And Recurve has a network of demand response and energy efficiency aggregators that are already in the market. So they see that signal and then they can choose to work in the community to provide that resource. And what's great about it is you don't pay for anything until the benefit has been realized and been confirmed by measurements. So that's another thing that's an opportunity for RCEA through that partnership. So with the intention of being terse, that's all my slides. But I'm very happy to talk about any questions or any thoughts around the Calpine services to RCEA.
Thank you, Mahela, and thank you just for all the background work that you guys do that I feel like a lot of us don't think about. That goes into unintended keeping the lights on. Your pump was unintended, Mike. So do we have any questions from the board?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Frank.
Just a quick one. When you said that what the error rate of RCEA was versus the 1% was the average,
Yeah,
and what are we compared to them?
So this is in particular the Alpine's error rate. Sometimes PG&E has an error for the larger bill. So every once in a while a customer will have an error on their bill, but just kind of making that distinction there. So yes, the industry standard for utilities is 98 to 99%. So 2% or 1% error rate, but the Calpine error rate for RCEA in the last year is 0.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's good. I can't get much better.
I concur, that is very good, that's great to see. With those white papers, I looked on your website and just see a couple of them, but it looked like there were more on the screen, so I was wondering if you could make those links available to us or share with our board. I'd love to check them out and see. I think the behavioral science aspect is really interesting.
So do we. There's so many things to investigate. Yes, we'd love to do that.
Any other questions before we open it up to public comment?
I'd like to just add really quick, RCA prides itself in having our phones answered locally, but we realized some unexpected staff shortages and we're having trouble with phone coverage, and we just really appreciated Calpine stepping up, and they worked on our timeline, which was really short, and offered an additional service of answering when you called RCA. Calpine was answering and directing those calls for a period of time this last year. So thank you.
All right, do we have anybody here to comment on this item? Not seeing anybody here, anybody online? No one online. All right. Well, any last things from the board? If not, thank you so much, and back to visiting our board. Thank you. All right, that is gonna be the end of our CDC business, and that'll take us into our regular RCEA business, new business item 10.1, which is our community advisory committee member appointments. And so do we have a staff report for the executive director?
Yes, so we have terms for 8 of the CAC's 15 seat hiring. There are 4 current vacancies. And then just as a reminder, right now, we had 4 at-large positions, and we're converting 2 of those for our new board members. So we'll have the 2 at-large positions to fill this year. Next board meeting, we will discuss having an ad hoc subcommittee to go through the at-large applications to recommend appointments for those. But we did not want to wait with this many vacancies, and we do have some nominations. Fortuna, Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District, and Ferndale have nominated the currently seated members for reappointment. And Director Bauer has nominated Deborah Dukes. I apologize for the misspelling of her name in the staff report to the Community Advisory Committee. And then we do have some of them here with us today, and we just asked if they wanted to really briefly step up and introduce themselves to you. If they could do so before turning it over to the board.
Great. Well, then I will invite any of our nominees that are here. If you'd like to make your way to the podium and say a few words, please feel free to do so.
Hi, I'm Deborah Dukes, and I am really thrilled to be nominated for this position. I was afraid Scott wasn't going to show up. He's the one who nominated me, and I thought, well, that shows a lot of faith. I'm very active in the local climate mitigation and adaptation groups, 350 Humboldt, the Eureka Energy Committee, and now the Community Advisory Board. I really appreciate all the work that you all do. As has been previously said, I know it ain't easy, and I admire you for coming and putting yourselves out there all the time. I'm looking forward to working with the advisory group and getting to know a little bit more about what they do and how they do it and how we can whip you guys into shape. Thank you very much. And I wanted to thank Lori particularly, I'm sorry she's not here, for trying to promote me to a very distant relative's position. Doris Duke was a now dead billionaire who is very distantly related to me, and I'm from the real poor side of the family. I got real excited there for a minute. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. All right, any of our other folks that are in the audience, feel free to come on up. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Amalio. Oh yeah, just to wait on the tech. So hello, my family. My name is Redwood, and it's nice to be here today. I'm currently serving on the Community Advisory Committee, and I've been enjoying my time there, and I welcome the new board members, and I look forward to the additions that will be brought to the Community Advisory Committee as well. And I look forward to this reappointment, and hopefully I get to continue to serve in the capacity that I have been. Anyways, nice to meet you, and thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Come on up.
I'll migrate over here. I'm Dennis Leonardi. I chair the CEC currently, and we love our board liaison. I mean, she's great. And I will tell you all that we have a very robust and technically astute advisory committee, and we get to bat around all kinds of issues. Probably more fun than you guys have. You have to actually make decisions. We get to talk about the future and public relations and more biomass than you want to see, but we have a great group of folks around the table who are really committed. And it's nice to be part of a group that everyone's engaged. So I've enjoyed it, and I think everyone else has too. So thank you for allowing us to serve.
Thank you, Dennis.
The only person not here is Elizabeth Burks, and she had a conflict and couldn't attend. She sent her.
Sounds good. Okay, and so we have some appointments and some reappointments, and I will, I guess, open it up to public comment first. If there's anybody else out in the public that would like to advocate for these folks. Not seeing anybody in person. Do we have anybody online? None online. All right, then I will bring it back to the board for a motion to appoint and reappoint these folks to our CAC.
I move approval of the slate of appointees as a.
Second. Good.
So we have a motion and a second. We'll do a show of hands vote. All in favor? Sorry. Unanimous, motion passed. Okay. Well, thank you and congratulations to our CAC members, and we look forward to the work that you guys do for us. So thank you so much. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I thought we were gonna discuss the motion or that I would get a chance to say this. I wanted to
Please, yes.
thank our retiring CAC member, Jerome Curiazzi, who's here today. And just thank you so much, Jerome. You bring a level of technical knowledge and expertise that I'm very grateful for in any space that you're in, and I'm grateful that I get to work with you in other ways too. So thank you for serving on the CAC.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, any other board members with final thoughts on this? All right, thank you so much. Yes. All right, that will take us then to our next item, item 1.2, a presentation on RCEA's transportation program with information on EV and hydrogen charging station planning. So we have our senior infrastructure program manager here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Aptali. I'm the senior manager on the infrastructure planning department. I'm only going to discuss our work on electric vehicle charging. I don't have the background or the expertise to talk on hydrogen, and I believe that Jerome is going to address the board a little bit on that respect. But thank you again for your time. I got to present last month a narrower focus of our medium duty, heavy duty infrastructure planning grant. And now I'm going to broaden the topic out to just transportation in general. And so again, just to revisit some of our key strategies, get 6,000 electric vehicles on the road in Humboldt County by 2025, develop workplace and residential EV charging infrastructure, work with local public entities to reduce vehicle miles traveled and reduce greenhouse gas emissions from the transportation sector. Those are our broad goals that we try to think about when we're developing our programs and doing our work in the transportation sector. And so again, some of this is similar to what we saw last month. So this is from our 2015 greenhouse gas emissions inventory. And we see that transportation is a really big part of the emissions here in rural Humboldt County. That's part of why we take our transportation work very seriously. And then just to see a breakdown. So last month, again, we were talking about medium duty, heavy duty vehicles, which would be the left side of the graph of the pie, and then the on-road, there's my red dot. On-road passenger vehicles, or what we call light duty vehicles, are about half of the transportation emission puzzle problem. So this is a picture of our current team. We're a small, that's our infrastructure planning and transportation team, all four of us. We did add a project or a program coordinator who wasn't available at the time we took the picture, but we've grown a little teeny bit. And again, we feel like infrastructure planning is the broad topic, transportation, because a lot of the work we're doing is about getting charging infrastructure in place. It fits nicely in that department. And so the things that we'll talk about today, some of the programs that we're working on, we have our renewable energy vehicle network, our public charging network. We've been working on the California Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program. It's a grant funding program at the state level to get infrastructure out into the community. Again, we talked about our planning grant around medium duty, heavy duty. And then we have another grant from the California Energy Commission to expand our network. So can show you what our current networks looks like. And then we'll talk a little bit about how we're going to expand our public charging network. Talk about some of the planning and coordination that went around a federal grant application that we submitted recently, and then talk about some of our local rebates, which are for electric bikes, residential EV chargers, and light-duty electric vehicles. And so our network, most of our chargers are a charge point station that you can see in the picture on the bottom right. That's the Arcata Community Center. It's we have 15 locations, 52 level 2 ports. If you're familiar with charging, level 2's maybe like it sounds, is somewhere between level 1 charging is very slow. Level 2 can be somewhere between 7 and 20 kilowatts, and then you get up to DC fast charging or level 3 charging. All of our chargers are level 2. We're currently expanding the network to see 6 new ports come online at the Arcata Open Door facility that's opening maybe yesterday, maybe tomorrow. I don't know. They're ready to have their grand opening very soon. Eureka H Street in front of the GHD building across from our office. We'll see 4 new ports probably installed on Monday. We just had PG&E out there doing all the infrastructure upgrades to install a new pole and a pole mounted transformer. And it was a lot of work. And sometimes I forget how much infrastructure has to go in to install the 2 chargers. We don't see that in this picture, right? I took a bunch of pictures to would have made it into this slide deck just to show how much work that is. There's also a project going on up at the county airport where we again plan to see 4 to 6 new ports, depending on how that plays out. And the current reality, it took us 12 months on our H Street project that I just referenced. And one of the reasons was we were back ordered on an electric meter panel that's utility compliant. And they were very hard to come by, and we're not the only one experiencing those kinds of delays. I think we've all heard about that, but it directly affects our ability to build out projects in this area, in all areas. So here's a picture that shows our network. On the left, you see the northernmost stations. We go as far north as Trinidad, as far east as Willow Creek. We have a couple of stations in McKinleyville, some in Arcata, quite a lot in Blue Lake, I would say, you know. There's a lot of charging infrastructure in the Blue Lake region right now. Thanks a lot to the Rancheria and also the city of Blue Lake. We have chargers at C Street in Eureka and out at St. Joseph's Hospital. And then the slide on your right, we're going south. We have stations in Ferndale, 2 locations in Fortuna, and down in Rio Dell is our southernmost station in our current network. And this is both energy use or amount of energy dispensed on the left. The first bar is 2016 all the way to the left, and then takes us up to 2023 on the right. And so we're seeing about 10,000 kilowatt hours a month on our network right now. And it's been increasing every year. And you can see, if I can get my pointer to work, which I'm pretty bad at, right there, that's the pandemic. And same thing in number of sessions. So we were seeing steady growth, and then the pandemic brought us down. And now we're ramping back up like other things in life, getting back to this upward trajectory that we see across our network. And so we're seeing, this is number of sessions, how many people plug in. We see about 1,000 sessions a month and about 10,000 kilowatt hours a month. This is the GHG emissions reductions associated with that. Again, the kilograms of CO2 equivalent is the unit, and you just see that increasing over time. As our network sees more use, we are seeing, right, this is just seeing the conversion from going from internal combustion engines into electricity, which has much lower emissions associated with transportation. So we're seeing a growth in our GHG reductions. Somehow not a double negative, but it still seems weird. Growth and reductions. So that was our network, where we are and how it's performing. Now I'll go on to some of the grant programs that we have been able to take advantage of. So the California Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program 1.0, I think, launched in 2021. Before I was on the transportation department, I was here at RCEA, so a little bit familiar with it, but we secured $284,000 for our region to install electric vehicle charging stations. That's a huge win for our area. You know, of our 14 locations and, 27 charging stations, we had some older equipment that was less reliable and becoming increasingly less reliable. And so we swapped those out at 9 locations. We upgraded to our charge point stations, which are very reliable, a little more modern. And then we also were able to expand our network, and those are the new stations that I discussed at H Street. The picture of the 8 ports at the Arcata Community Center were part of Cal EVIP. The airport expansion will be part of Cal EVIP, and then we have some money reserved for the Jefferson Center under the 1.0. Then they launched 2.0, and 2.0 was not quite a good fit for us. It was DC fast charging only. There are a lot of reasons why that has not been a great fit for our network. It's hard to get the required infrastructure from PG&E. You need 480 volt power. You need a lot of it. And the cost can be pretty high to operate fast chargers. There are demand charges associated with that high rate of charge that have, it's hard for us to recoup the cost from DC fast charging at the moment. We're still looking into growing our network into DC fast, but we weren't really eligible for Cal EVIP 2.0 because of that restriction. So we didn't see any money reserved. We did talk a lot with the public. We made eligible entities aware of this funding and try to give technical advice. Some of the challenges are that they're really looking for shovel-ready projects. Shovel-ready means you've already done all of your advanced planning, design, permits. All of those things cost a considerable amount of money. It makes it's a real barrier to entry. If you have to be shovel-ready, you already had to have some money to get shovel-ready. And this program required shovel-ready projects, and that's not the only state, or funding resource that requires shovel-ready. It's one of the things we comment on a lot when we see these things. We try to make comments that is not a good fit for economically challenged areas, and yet that persists. So just kind of giving our experience with that second round of funding. So the blueprint, just focus on our collaboration on this. We worked with the Shots Energy Research Center. We collaborated and discussed and did some workshops where we had a lot of fleet operators able to attend, some from our member agencies, some from private fleet operators. It really was RCEA, we have no fleet. So this is an exercise in collaboration and planning across our county to try to think about how our agency and our area is going to respond to these mandates. So I think there was a lot of cross-agency collaboration involved in this medium-duty, heavy-duty blueprint. But because we presented on that last month, I'll refrain from going into too many details about that. So our newer grant, a grant we're currently implementing, came from the California Energy Commission through their Clean Transportation Program. They granted us $700,000. We have some matched money in there to make ourselves eligible for this funding. We'll be expanding our network. One of the really nice things about this is I said that level 2 has a range of charging capacity or power. So our current level 2 chargers are 7.2, actually 7.7. I got that number wrong. I apologize. 7.7 kilowatts. And not to get too deep in the weeds, just 19 is bigger than 7, right? So the newer level 2 chargers charge at 19 kilowatts. That's going to allow customers to charge faster, make the stations more available to more people. If a car can get their charge done quickly, they can move on and let another person charge. It can help us as we seek to, earn revenue through our charging network, which is a struggle to make the charging network pay for itself. If we can sell more kilowatt hours more quickly, we'll be better off. So there's also some potential for these to have vehicle to grid functionality. I won't get too far into the weeds on that one, but there's also some potential for these sites to build out and add renewable energy and storage, so that maybe the charging stations, we think about it both ways. Maybe the charging station can support the grid when cars are full and the grid needs some help. But maybe on site, we could also install renewables and storage to keep the chargers able to charge cars when the grid is down. So here's a graphic, because I had a lot of words on a lot of slides. I'll apologize for that. And so the green stations are existing stations, and the red dots are our new stations that we're going to be expanding. We'll be doing this work all through 2024 and probably complete construction in early 2025, but things I like to point out, we're getting a lot farther out and serving underserved communities in Orleans. We're going a lot farther south with Redwood Rural Health Center in Redway and the Southern Humboldt Community Health Center in Garberville, while also trying to, expand charging infrastructure in the high use Bay Area cities and communities. And the reason this is important is we need both. I mean, we need to have high use stations because high use stations and high use areas are where there's more demand, where our stations do a little bit better earning us revenue. But we can't just ignore underserved areas. If we never build a charger in Orleans, people in Orleans will not feel empowered to buy an electric vehicle, right? And same thing with Southern Humboldt. So we're really very happy to expand our network in this way. So current collaborations, because some of this was about what's going on across our county and across agencies in planning. We meet monthly with the Humboldt County Transportation Roundtable. So that includes the Humboldt County Association of Governments, staff from Caltrans, folks from the Coalition for Responsible Transportation Priorities. I hope I got their acronym right. The North Coast Unified Air Quality Management District, the Shots Energy Research Center, the Humboldt Transit Authority. Staff from all those agencies and entities meet on a monthly basis, and we get to hear about what we are doing, and we also support each other. Letters of support for funding opportunities, letters of support for different initiatives. Reiterate, we work with the Shots Energy Research Center on our blueprint. We also take part, excuse me, in the North State Super Region ZEV working group. It's a multi-county region now. Instead of just within our county, we're meeting with the County of Mendocino and Lake transportation planners in those areas to talk about the same things, funding opportunities to advance zero emission vehicles across our region. We meet regularly, and our regulatory and legislative team meets and is part of the joint CCA's working group. And so, looking at all things at the state level for transportation electrification framework that comes down from the CPUC, low carbon fuel standard, reporting requirements. When we sell kilowatt hours through our network, we meter those, and each one of those kilowatt hours is can be converted to a low carbon fuel standard credit because electricity is considered a low carbon fuel, and so we're able to generate credits. And there's a lot of reporting and regulatory stuff, issues around that. So we're constantly collaborating with other CCAs on those issues. PG&E's Electric Vehicle Charge Network Program Advisory Committee, actually my supervisor Dana, our director of our department, participates in that. The utilities need to hear from us, and they need to hear from people who have on the ground experience of how their programs roll out and how it affects customers and consumers. So that's a lot of the work that we're doing to collaborate with similarly situated agencies and agencies with similar missions. So I mentioned we submitted a federal Department of Transportation charging and fueling infrastructure grant application. Now, I will say that since I made this slide, we were informed that we did not succeed in this grant effort. So that's okay. You have to try a lot and you lose some in order to win some. But what I will point out in the vein of collaborations is we worked with every one of those entities that you see up there. So the McKinleyville Community Services District, many of our member agencies at the cities, we actually had a Yurok site as well that didn't make it into my graphic. I apologize to the group on that. And so one of the things you won't see here is the city of Eureka, because again, in the nature of coordination, we realized and talked to our counterparts at the city of Eureka, who was submitting a grant application for the same funding source. And we did not want our grants to overlap. So, my map over there has a big gap, right, in the Eureka area there. And that actually, I think, was a good strategy. The city of Eureka was awarded their grant. Congratulations to the city of Eureka and their staff. They did a great job. And we'll continue that collaboration as we share lessons learned from building out our network, but also as they build out their charging infrastructure. There will likely be an opportunity for us to incorporate them into our network. So we'll manage them and operate those stations, even though City of Eureka got the funding to get them installed. There's still a lot of work to keep them online, to keep them running, to keep the payment systems going, to get everybody reimbursed. So we will continue to play that role. And continue to collaborate with the city on that project. So and then this is an example, so we're out there providing technical assistance to a lot of agencies. A lot of times I have We have key account services. One of my key accounts as a key account manager was the city, Eureka City Schools. And what you're just seeing is their corporation yard down on the right. They applied for the PG and EV fleet program. A lot of administrative burdens to participating in these programs. They also have energized grant funding, but their transportation director spends a good part of her day driving a bus, another part of her day driving those buses down to the mall to charge them because they don't have the required infrastructure and they really needed some administrative support. And this is just some snapshots of that work. The table show their electric bus adoption program over the years. So going from 2024 to 2028, they have to forecast how many EVs they're going to buy to become eligible for PG&E funding. Because PG&E doesn't want to fund projects for people who are not committed to buying the electric vehicles. So they have to forecast this rate of adoption out and then commit to it. And then they do the same thing for the chargers. This won't all get built out today, but by 2028, they're forecast to have 13 electric vehicles, mostly buses, a couple of food service vehicles and a forklift, and all of that will be electrified and charging on, level 2 chargers that are funded by both the state of California through Energize and a little bit of funding from PG&E through their EV fleet program. And so I just want to let people know we're trying to help our local government agencies navigate those available funding opportunities. And then we get to our CEC funded programs, and this is stuff where I think we all can, I hope, feel good and take credit for some of this work. We provide EV and EV charger rebates to our customers. So far, we've provided 43 rebates for electric vehicles, averaging a little over $1,000. And EV charger rebates close to 40 at around an average of $300. So putting money back into our community to support these things, and these are helping meet our mission of getting those EVs on the road and getting the charging infrastructure installed. Right now, we're looking to relaunch our EV rebate program, which lapsed because it was tied to the California Clean Vehicle Rebate Program. Their funding ran out, and so now we've got to relaunch because we indexed their funding to say if you were qualified for their program, now you're qualified for ours. When they went away, we want to still make that money available to the community, so we think we'll relaunch in March. And without the EV rebate, we've noticed that our EV charger rebates really slowed down. So as everybody was applying for an EV rebate, almost those same customers were coming for the EV charger rebate. So now the last one says we're trickling in our EV charger rebates 1 or 2 a month. And we think that's because there's not an EV rebate to pair with that. So they are much more effective together. Then the last thing we're doing is an e-bike voucher program. So one of the things you'll see in our high level goals at the start was to reduce vehicle miles traveled. Electrifying vehicles doesn't reduce vehicle miles traveled, right? So we have to address that a different way. And one of those ways is with e-bikes. E-bikes take a car off the road. If a person's using it for commuting instead of their car, now we're reducing vehicle miles traveled. So e-bikes are a great way to get at that problem in a way that other initiatives do not. We had a phase 1 that was very popular, got subscribed right away. And so now we're getting ready to launch round 2. We've been waiting to launch because we wanted to pair it with the state, and you might have heard a little bit of this in previous presentations. The state has not launched yet, but we still wanted you to know that our voucher program is going to focus on local brick and mortar bike shops. It's going to focus on having a low income component. So all CCE members are eligible for a base rebate, but we have an income qualified level that's higher than that. A cargo bike, really allows people to use the bicycle as an alternative to their car, because now with a cargo bike, they might be able to do their grocery shopping or bike their kids to work and school. And so we have an enhanced incentive for the cargo bike, and then adaptive bikes are for people for whom a standard bike does not work. And so they need some adaptive adjustments. That might be a recumbent bike that sits down closer to the ground because they can't get up onto a regular bike. It might be a bike that has a third wheel because balance is hard for them. So adaptive bikes are a class that was left out of our first round of rebates. And so the more people that can access these e-bike rebates, the more vehicle miles traveled we can reduce. And then again, on the collaboration, worked with City of Arcata staff who made an additional match of $20,000 so that we have more money to give away when our program does launch. So that's great, and thanks to the city of Arcata. And with that, I will pause for questions.
Thank you for the presentation. I was just wondering, thinking about being ecotourism area up here in Northern California. We thought about working with parks, swimming, or there's a free park that people come, travel up here. They take hiking trails, or they could be charging their car. Well, we thought about anything like that.
We thought about it. We don't have any plan or proposals around it, but it is something we have considered.
What does it cost to put in a charging station?
You know, that I would have to probably give a range, you know, for level 2 charging. A lot of our stations have 2 ports. I'll have to caveat this answer probably a lot, but if you had a dual port level 2 charging station, and everything was just right. Let's say you were at a building that had plenty of power and it was a very short run, and the parking lot was already ADA compliant, probably $25,000. But we never have found that perfect site yet. Doesn't really exist. So, you know, over at H Street, I think, you know, the city had to do quite a bit of paving work to make the parking stalls ADA compliant. We had to have utility upgrades that I mentioned earlier, a pole and a transformer upgrade. Now, those were done at PG&E's cost because we took advantage of something called a Rule 29 application. And it's a special application. It's for dedicated electric vehicle charging service. So buildings aren't eligible for that. It has to be a meter that's just there for EV charging. And then PG&E or the CPUC has a bucket of money to fund that. It would have been a $40,000 to $60,000 upgrade that we did not have to pay for, but we got, you know, someone had to pay for that. So that would have been the cost of that project. And it can really be amazing how much so you could get a station, an installation like that the total project cost is closer to $100,000.
Okay, couple questions. One is that I know that we got that report about the medium and heavy duty vehicles, which was really interesting. And I was thinking about the light duty fleet vehicles that all of our agencies have, you know, both the public sector and private sector kind of fleet vehicles. And I'm curious how that factors in, you know, to that big pie chart, emissions from transportation. Do we have a sense of that? Has that been part of our study in the past? Could you just say a bit more about that?
I mean, I think in the sense that if they were light duty vehicles, they were probably lumped into the passenger class that you saw on that slide.
Okay.
That's, you know, I don't think that they're in an interesting position right now. We saw a grant funding opportunity come out for light duty vehicles for government fleets. Counties and cities only were eligible to apply with a minimum 100 port count. So we didn't know very many cities and only the county. We forwarded that information onto them as they like, maybe you're eligible. Maybe if you have 100 ports, you want to install it once. So the scale is not a good fit for our rural areas where we don't see very many fleets with 100 vehicles. So more of the funding resources have come around for medium duty, heavy duty fleets than light duty fleets. And that's something we're looking at. And, you know, how do we address that issue?
Okay. And then my other question was about the showing the ignorance question. But I was thinking about how often I hear from people, and I would put myself in this category even too, of you know, reticence to adopt a fully EV personal vehicle because of distances traveled for work. Often is what I hear, and that's, you know, what I can relate to. And I found myself thinking as you're presenting, like, I have a gas can in my car. Is there a battery pack equivalent of like having a gas can to get you that extra bit of the way? I really don't understand the charging infrastructure enough to know whether you can have supplemental like battery.
I mean, I don't think so. I'm gonna look at my director now to see, because he knows things like that.
Gas is $1,200.
Okay.
One of the challenges is that the battery banks in cars are huge. So I have a Chevy Volt. It's a plug-in hybrid. It's like the smallest battery bank you'll find in a car. It's much bigger than a Tesla Powerwall at your home, right? So like the idea that I would cart around a Tesla Powerwall that, you know, despite what Dana said, that costs $15,000, right? So the scale of the motive batteries is just dwarfed what emergency batteries and what we think of as like standby power, can supply. So it's a real challenge. And one of the reasons manufacturers don't put bigger batteries in cars is it weights them down and it reduces their range, right? Makes the car less efficient. So inherently an engineering challenge there that is getting better, but I think it is still a challenge.
It does make me want to keep tabs on it in the future in case that's they realize we can't offer a rebate right now for that kind of supplemental, battery pack. But if in the future we can, if the technology gets better, they get cheaper, they get smaller, which I assume that's the direction, a lot of the sooner run, hopefully, fingers crossed. I'd love to kind of keep that on the back burner as something to explore to help people adopt in these really rural areas around our counties.
And I just want to mention, we have Jerome here from HTA to give a brief update on what HTA is doing in this space as well.
I had a question about, I think, what is our need for ports? Is it 3,000 or 9,000 to get us to a fully electrified?
For the fleet number, yeah, 9,000, if we assumed half the vehicles were electric and half were fuel cell vehicles, then yes, that was our estimate from our study.
And I just can't imagine that PG&E has the distribution or transmission capacity at the current, you gotta build that out, right? I mentioned this to a PG&E, our local liaison. What are you doing? Because we wanna fast track this. We gotta do this quickly. What are you doing? And it's kind of like, well, you're not there yet, but it's like, what if we receive a $50 million grant for putting 500 ports and there's no ability to electrify those ports?
And the very simple answer I have is that's probably why we're nested under infrastructure as a larger issue. And I think that the team in general is wrestling with those issues, grappling with those issues. And but you're right, today we just don't have that electrical capacity available. And on the flip side, I think as someone who looks at this regularly, I try to look at, and I think as a department, we look at where is there capacity on the grid? Maybe we need to start there and build out what we can today while that capacity grows.
Thanks.
Question I have for you, Mike, and kind of playing to Natalie's question of like a lot of people are resistant to buying EVs because of, am I going to be able to get far enough to get to work, et cetera. And I think about just kind of the travel corridor of the 101 between the Bay Area and here. And is there, much or any coordination between like Mendocino, Sonoma, Lake counties and Humboldt, kind of working to build out that network to make, that travel easier and more accessible to people that have EVs?
The North State Working Group was one of those collaboration groups I mentioned. That's the group that's looking at that. And at the last meeting, they had invited representatives from the California Energy Commission and I think it was Caltrans. And one of the problems right now is they prioritize meaning at the state level, there have been certain transportation corridors that are prioritized for electrification. And we are not near any of them. And so if you look at it's called NEVI, National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program. It's got some very lucrative funding. It's funded through the federal government and also the state chips in. You have to be on one of those priority corridors right now to access NEVI funding. And one of the points we make is that this network doesn't work if you fund one piece here and one piece here with a big gap in between, right? It's just not how the road network does not function that way, but that is how it's being addressed right now. And that it's largely around population, which there is a lot of merit to that reasoning, but it does leave us out.
Yeah. Thank you. So yeah, any other questions for Mike before we invite up Jerome from HCA here to give the rest of this presentation? All right, well then we'll invite up Storm Curiosity from HCA to speak to the hydrogen charging portion of this.
Good afternoon, directors. Thank you. I'm Jerome Curiosity. I'm a planner with HTA, Humboldt Transit Authority. I did not bring slides today, so I'm just going to kind of go through a list of all the stuff we're up to around hydrogen. Just a quick background. The state has mandated that all transit agencies go to zero emission fleets, just as they've done with government agencies. but we were the first that they enforced a mandate to do so. So by 2029, we're not allowed to purchase any more new gasoline or diesel vehicles. And by 2040, we're urged to have 100% zero emission fleet. So back in 2018, the general manager, Greg Pratt, knowing that it can be difficult for rural agencies to compete for funding with larger metropolitan areas, jumped on this early, started looking at electric vehicles, did some studies with the Shots Energy Research Center, and ended up choosing hydrogen because hydrogen is a viable technology. It's been out there on the roads, particularly with transit agencies, for about 12, 13 years. And it gives us the range to achieve the routes that we have, the long routes from Trinidad to Scotia and out to Willow Creek and down to Southern Humboldt. So that's kind of the background. And then, as many of you know, we were awarded a grant a year and a half ago now from state funding to construct a hydrogen filling station and for 11 new fuel cell electric buses. And that in about mid-February, the RFP will go out for the contractor for that fueling station. And we're targeting that station is open about fall of 2026. That station will have capability not only of fueling our fleet, but also will have over-the-fence public access fueling for light-duty vehicles. And then we are also will have our in-yard fueling open to any fleets locally in the county that are looking at hydrogen as well. And so, like, hoping to help start that fuel option for our fleets in the area. And I talked about the buses. So the first bus that we'll get, we're expecting the end of this year. We'll have temporary fueling for that in the meantime. So we test it, see how it performs, make sure it's performing as we'd expect. And then the remaining 10 buses will arrive right around when the fueling station is completed in 2026. So other stuff, we've been busy in the hydrogen world outside, along with that as well. So we just received confirmation of funding that we received to develop a hydrogen fuel cell over-the-road coach. So these are the larger 45-foot Amtrak style buses that you see. And this would be a prototype that would help spur this vehicle type for the California market. So we're expecting that the prototype that we have will actually be the first in California, possibly in the United States. And will be here on our roads. And that will involve actually kind of a road show where we're testing it in different areas across California. So we're very excited about that. And we expect that to show up somewhere late 2026 or early 27. We also applied for funding. We will hear in March or so to the Air Resources Board to develop a prototype medium duty 26,000 pound gross vehicle weight rating cutaway bus. So it's the cutaway buses we put on the Southern Humboldt route or the Willow Creek route. They're the longer, more challenging routes. They'll have high elevation gains. Going out to Willow Creek, you need chains, you're dealing with snow, but we also still need that high seat count. So these are larger vehicles, but they're not your city buses. And currently there's no plans in the commercial market to offer this type of vehicle type. So we've applied to develop a prototype for this type of vehicle as well. We're crossing our fingers we'll get that. In addition, and just through all of this, we've really been coordinating with the Humboldt County Association of Governments. So they're participating in these grant programs with us, and then working with RCEA and their staff and keeping them up to date on what we're doing and participating in the study that they did. And also working with the city of Eureka and keeping them apprised of what we're doing. And in addition, just a couple of other updates. We've been busy on the state policy side as well. We're working with the State Department of General Services, and they are working on a statewide hydrogen fuel procurement contract. So basically looking to have a high volume fuel procurement contract to help bring down the price of that fuel, and then make it a streamlined process that any government agency can procure fuel through that process rather than everyone going out on their own. And they're hoping to have that, I think, those contracts signed at the end of next year. So that's really exciting. We've been participating in the panel that's been designing that RFP. In addition, the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, GoBiz, they sought out funding curves or feedback from us they hired a consultant to develop a business case or to highlight some of the challenges and possible solutions for rural entities and fleets adopting hydrogen. And they're using Humboldt Transit Authority as the case study for that. And so we're working closely with that project, and they'll have a report out somewhere around the end of this year, sort of highlighting, very actionable near-term steps that state agencies can do to help make hydrogen a more viable option for fleets to meet these zero emission mandates. Also, we're working with the Governor's Office at GoBiz as well. They are working on solving very specific technical challenges, one of which is providing a testing mechanism for high pressure. So a bit of background is that the fueling protocol for heavy duty vehicles isn't fully finalized. We're still in a very early market in the hydrogen industry around in terms of the transportation application. And so they're trying to help solve some of the challenges around that. And we've been working with the Governor's Office to review approaches and specifications for how to tackle some of those challenges, some of which do apply to us. They're just encouraged to see the amount of effort that state agencies are putting towards moving this hydrogen industry forward. And then lastly, we've been working with transit agencies across the state on quarterly meetings with their maintenance departments, where we specifically don't invite vendors so we can talk shop and kind of trash talk them a little bit about the challenges that we're having with them, but also working together to really address, when the rubber hits the road, actually making this work. So yeah, that's a quick overview of what we're doing in the hydrogen world. Yeah, any questions?
The hydrogen is fascinating to me. And my big question is whether we can make our own, or are we going to be buying, and then kind of second part to that, I hope we're not buying hydrogen that's made from CH4, we're not going to be buying natural gas. I know that's probably part of it, and I've heard that. That's kind of a preliminary step, but are we planning to make our own hydrogen?
Humboldt Transit Authority is not. We don't have the space to do it. And then to do it, to make green hydrogen, so clean zero carbon hydrogen, you really need to produce it from electrolysis. So you're using water, you're splitting water. And the utility power that you need to do that is very high. And so that's where you start coming into where are you going to find that interconnection point? And then it also requires a fair amount of land that we personally just don't have. I've definitely been, communicating with the Core Hub group around our interest in that, if there's any potential for dovetailing offshore wind development and perhaps periods of excess electricity. I don't know if that would pan out. We want to see local production because of how remote we are. So that is something that we really would love to see. If our station goes down, we're not going to have fuel. So that's going to only work when we still have diesels in our fleet. And there's going to be some point where we're not going to have diesels anymore. So we definitely want to keep pushing on ways to get local production so we have that resiliency. And then in terms of natural gas, so right now we're looking to purchase liquid hydrogen that's trucked in, and that we have goals to procure 100% clean or zero carbon hydrogen. But right now we're looking to, because of the cost of the fuel, we're looking to just meet the minimum state requirement of 33% renewable, produced from renewable fuel. And that is typically right now, renewable natural gas. So still produced from, methane. Yeah, thanks. Oh, I guess one other point is the, low carbon fuel standard in its current, it's going through a change right now, and its current changes, it will be proposing hydrogen as a mandatory fuel. Right now, it's a voluntary fuel, so it's mandatory in the regulation language, which means it will also follow the required increases in carbon reduction that the LCFS program will require.
Thank you. Other questions from the board? Great. Well, thank you, Jerome. We appreciate it. And then at this point, I will open it up for public comment. Is there anybody here in person that would like to comment on our presentation here?
Strictly anecdotally, I drive down to the Bay Area frequently because I have children there, and more importantly, grandchildren. And I have never had, I drive a 2019 Chevy Bolt with a B, and I've never had any trouble finding charging stations anywhere along the line. As my mother used to say when she was in the final years of her life and on Lasix, just don't ever pass up a bathroom. And so I top off my Bolt when I see an empty charger. There at Bear River, at Fortuna, no, not Fortuna, Benbow, Laytonville, and then Point South, lots of them, Ukiah, Willits, Ukiah, you know, all the way down. And you can get an app and it can tell you where the next DC fast charger is. There are usually restaurants. I always have a book. You can always catch up on your work. So strictly anecdotally, but a statistical sample of one.
Thank you, Deborah. And I anecdotally too, I have a sister who drives a Tesla and comes up here a lot, and they always have it mapped out. Get here, no problem. So that's good. I think it just discourages some people thinking about it. All right. Not seeing anybody else here in person. Do we have anybody online waiting to comment? No one online. Okay. And with that, any final thoughts from the board or? Okay. All right, we will go to item 10.3 then, which is Drifter Battery Energy Storage Services Agreement with Prologis, and we have Senior Power Resource Manager Jocelyn Quinn here to report.
Thank you, Sarah. Hi, everyone. I just have a few slides for you today in the spirit of brevity. I know we're coming up on 5 o'clock, so let's get to it. So I'm seeking approval of a long-term contract for a battery storage facility called Drifter Energy Storage. This is coming out of a solicitation for midterm reliability projects that you all approved last summer. That solicitation is still open, so you may see more projects come to you, but so far we've only shortlisted this one project with a company called Prologis. So a few procurement objectives that this project will meet. First and foremost, it will help us with our compliance with the CPUC's midterm reliability procurement orders that they've issued, as well as just our general monthly and annual resource adequacy compliance obligations as a load serving entity. This will be a standalone battery storage project that will charge from the grid. And contrary to the batteries we were just talking about, it's going to be massive scale, utility scale, and it'll help us integrate some of our in development solar resources, namely the Sandrini Solar Project that is going to be coming online later this year. And then just generally helping diversify our portfolio and support grid reliability. RCEA's portfolio, wholesale power portfolio, doesn't currently have any storage of this scale. So a lot of projects that we've procured to date have been smaller scale and or just resource adequacy contracts. So we've just we don't control those batteries that we're just buying RA from. In this case, we will be able to control when it charges and discharges and be able to kind of manage it closer. So just a little bit about the Drifter Energy Storage Project. The developer, as I mentioned, is Prologis Energy. They Their parent company, Prologis Incorporated, actually specializes in commercial real estate development and supply chain logistics. So they have a pretty interesting business model where they develop energy projects alongside their real estate developments. So this project is not local, but it's in Moore Park, Ventura County, and it seems like a really great site. They're developing it in conjunction with a sort of a commercial business park that is consistent with the city of Moore Park's development plans for that particular site. And you can see there in the, is this the laser? There it is. Oops. That the business park will be here, and then just to the east is the energy storage site. And then right directly to the east of that is the substation to which the project will interconnect. So that's really great for reducing interconnection costs and risk. And the facility that they're building is actually going to be a 500 megawatt total capacity of energy, battery energy storage, lithium ion. We're going to only be procuring 50 megawatts. That's, pretty, 500 would be, incredibly large for our appetite. So they're working with other counterparties to offtake the rest of that capacity. This contract we call in the industry full tolling agreement. That just means that we will, in exchange for paying Prologis a fixed price, we'll get full control over the battery system and be able to, optimize and dispatch it as we please for, within its operating restrictions, of course. And be able to take advantage of all the products that it will provide. So those are energy, resource adequacy, and ancillary services. And the project is expected to come online in summer, June of 2027. It will deliver for 20 years to us. And based on the analysis that we've done on the quantitative impacts for our financials, more specifically, the Energy Authority has done, this project is expected to return a positive value when you compare the value of all the products versus the cost. So that's in contrast with some contracts we've brought before the board that for compliance purposes, especially that are more like a break-even financial proposition. This one is going to have a positive impact. So, and that is it. So I can address any questions if you have any.
Do we have any questions for Jocelyn? Yeah, go ahead, Frank.
So RCEA's portion is the 50 megawatts of the 500. It's gonna be a 500 multimate thing.
Yeah.
We're looking to get 50 of it.
Yeah, correct. The contract is for 50, and it'll be all, metered separately and electrically distinct from the rest of the capacity.
What percentage of our midterm reliability needs does that meet, the 50 megawatts?
It's for 2027, that particular year, it's going to meet 100% of that particular year's requirement. Our requirement over the whole, midterm reliability period of 4 years is like 30 megawatts, 40. So it's not, and we've procured, other projects that are going to come online sooner to meet those earlier tranches. So this was really kind of taking a compliance obligation and also using that opportunity to meet other goals and procure energy storage for those other purposes. So it is larger than what we need for compliance, but it'll help a lot with our resource adequacy.
Okay, I was gonna ask why we're not taking 100 megawatts. But...
Yeah, we sort of tried to optimize the sizing based on our needs.
Is there any requirement that the power that charges the battery come from certain sources? So there be,
Yeah, no, so it's because it's standalone, there's no generation. You can have, there are contracts that have like, generation and storage not co-located, but they're contractually paired, but this is just storage. But it is only, I just looked it up on the map, it's only an hour and a half away from our Sandrini project. So it will be using it in such a way that it's charging during times when solar energy is abundant and, you know, fair energy on the grid is fairly cheap. And then discharging it when, you know, solar's offline, so. Yeah.
Yeah, you answered my question.
Okay.
Any other questions before we open it up to public comment? All right, we'll take it out to the public. Anybody here in person? Not seeing anybody online? Nobody's online. I'll bring it back to the board for a motion to approve this resolution. So move. Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second, and we'll do a show of hands vote. All in favor?
Oh my. Yeah. Yes, no, yes.
Yeah, no, you're correct. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank Jocelyn, and that'll take us then to item 11 tonight, which is our staff reports. So, Eileen, do we have any reports?
I just, it's really in the beginning stages, but I have been in touch with the Hoopa Valley Tribe, who expressed interest in joining the board. And so we have sent over a draft template resolution for their review, and so I'll have more information later, but it's exciting that they're interested.
Thank you. All right, do we do public comment on staff reports? I know that varies.
Yeah.
Entity to entity. Okay, so do we have any public comments? Not seeing any online? No. All right, that'll take us to future agenda items, and just not an agenda item, but something I slipped my mind to say earlier. I want to thank our outgoing board chair, Sherry Wu.
Oh.
And thank you for your long time service. We were talking a couple weeks ago, and you said 11 years that you've been on.
For a while, yeah, Frank and I, man,
realize that. So thank you, Sherry, for
You're very
your service to this board.
Yep.
Do we have any future agenda items? Yes.
I will say I got some public input about this, a few months ago, so I feel a little behind the ball and bring this forward. But it's come up again, both in emails and conversations with community members about, and I think what I'd like to ask for is a presentation about with some possible actions that the board might take from maybe an advocacy perspective around residential solar and some of the disincentives. There have been this legislative and administrative barriers that now exist, and I'm hearing about them, but I don't really understand them. So I'd like to understand that better and see what as a board we might be able to do.
Thank you. Yeah, that sounds great. And I know that's a very complex, topic that we've been grappling with too, as different regulations come out. So
and
I would agree that sounds like a good item to discuss. Yeah.
I said residential, but I also think I mean small scale.
Small scale, yeah. Residential to local commercial. Yeah.
Right.
Any other? Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
I brought up the PG&E issue, their potential bottleneck.
We all just got our bills too.
Yeah. I don't know if they'd be willing, PG&E, to come and just tell us, like, what's your planning horizon look like? Power our community beyond, Humboldt Bay generating station. I'd really like to know what they're doing. I don't know if anybody else would be interested, but.
No, I think it's important. Great. Yeah, I just got. All right, any other folks with items? Yes, Frank.
Both in public comment, we had two versions today on this permitted for Humboldt Sawmill to the Air Quality Board. One said that they did not have a permit, and then we also received a public comment, or I guess it's public comment from the Air Quality Board that says, if I'm understanding this, they're saying it's the coalition that she referred to issued an erroneous public comment or a thought press release. And so, this thing says, if I understand it, they've applied correctly for their permit, and the people presenting here and online were saying that it doesn't have a permit, and that just to me seemed unbelievable that knowing that the Air Quality Board, you don't do that. You don't run without permit. And yet they came and said that, and then so kind of what the end of the conversation was, they don't have one, and this says they do. So is there a way that staff can clarify that in a manner? Because if they're not gonna be permitted, well, then that's a big deal. And if they are permitted, I'd like that to be clarified to the public. That they are.
Yeah, I feel like we've had a past conversation of requesting to just maybe some sort of presentation or better understanding from the air quality district, because I agree with Frank, there's been kind of a lot of, there's all these violations, but then the air quality district says, well, no, these are within an allowable range. So there is some, I think, confusion between the data that a lot of the members of the public are looking at and that like air quality is giving to us and then putting out. And I think, some of that clarification really would be helpful for the board to.
Well, to your side, there was the clarification of these violations.
Yeah.
The lady said that there was over 300 violations. Some violations, like any of your water treatment or plants that you have, you get violations that are insignificant. They're violations, but they're not critical violations.
Yeah.
Then there are ones that are.
Yeah.
And I would not say that there are violations down there at Scotia that aren't significant. I know enough about the place to tell you that there could very well be. There could be very well some violations. So if that could be added into this thing with the clarification from air quality, would tell us the real severity and impact of the violation.
Yeah, and I think, that's something that we as a board need to, see and get solid information on, so.
And I will say the Biomass Technical Advisory Group that was formed last year, it has members, the Air Quality District is on that, as well as the Public Health officer, members of the Forest Products and 350 Humboldt Epic. And so in response to the press release that went out, we will be meeting with them in February and try to address the comments that have been made, and then we'll bring that back to the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
On our balance sheet, we have a line item entitled doubtful accounts. Are those bills not collected?
So we just started a collections process fairly recently.
About a year ago.
Yeah, and we are in the process of cleaning up what we have on our balance sheet from the amounts that we can still collect on, and then the amounts that we can no longer collect on. So I believe the amount right now includes both amounts. So there are some limitations on what we can collect on, but
well, that was about a year ago. So I was just wondering how we did with that agency collecting the amount. It was a big amount.
So we could put a future agenda item on an update on our collections.
However, you want.
Anything else, folks? All right, that's gonna take us then, we're gonna go into closed session, but we will take public comment first. So item 13.1 is gonna be conference with legal counsel, existing litigations, PUC 22-02-005.
Public comment on that last one.
We don't take up on.
Yeah, public comment before you go into closed session. Oh,
Yeah.
you mean on future agenda items? No actions taken, you're not required to.
Well, I just wanted from the cheap seat, CAC took a tour of the biomass plant down at Redwood, so we actually got to see and talk to the folks down there and understand how it operates and ask them those questions directly on compliance and So it was very helpful, I think, for the folks that went on it. It may be an activity that you might want to entertain.
I think pretty much all of us that were able also did. Yeah. But thank you, yes. All right, and so again, 13.1, legal counsel for modification to government code 54956.9 D1. And then our second closed session item, which is going to be 13.2, public employee performance evaluation pursuant to government code section 54957B1 executive directive. So I will open it up to public comment. Is there any public comment here in person on our closed session items and any online? All right. Well, thank you, folks. We'll take a quick break as we move into closed session.
And then there's a lot of that.
Okay, we are reconvening the session. This is Chair Schaefer. There's nothing to report out, and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Sarah.